Hello everyone, welcome to the Watchalong for the British Grand Prix. FP3 qualifying will be later on in a few hours time, but we've got some interesting lap times to be set in FP3, haven't we? A lot of hype has come from the Ferrari side of things after yesterday's performance. They were pretty strong. I do still believe that the McLarens are going to be the faster car. FP1 looked a little bit iffy. It didn't look so reassuring for the McLaren team. And actually, practice one yesterday, that was Lewis Hamilton taking the top spot, only by a small margin with Lando Norris, then Oscar Piastri, and then it was Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Hadjar P6. But then FP2... it got a little bit interesting as well, and that was Lando Norris, who was 2/10 ahead of Charles Leclerc, then Lewis Hamilton, and they were very close to one another. And then it was Oscar Piastri. So the Ferraris and the McLarens are in a bit of a mix at the moment. I still believe with FP2 and the cars being a bit more dialed in, they'll have things kind of on the upper hand, I guess you could say. They'll be a little bit further in front, and I think we might see a McLaren 1-2 here in the FP3 session, if not in qualifying. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Just waiting for the confirmation until we know we can get going here. Scrolling through that there. I do apologise for disturbing that just for a moment. And then sorting everything out. Might have to go for a quick sync up at some point. But hopefully we're all ready to go and we'll have no issues for this session. Just waiting for the clock to begin. We've actually got a delay on track, in fact, due to, I believe, the dirt on the track, the marbles, very difficult. I'm not entirely sure which sessions were just earlier on. I think F3 and F2 would have probably had sessions, or maybe not already actually. They're definitely going to have them in between now and qualifying. There is a chance that there may have been something just a few moments ago as well. Alright, hopefully we can get ready for the session, but still, all the drivers currently sat in the garage. No one in their cars or their suits due to this delay at the moment. And I want to have a look at the weather, because we were looking at the weather yesterday, but we weren't really sure what was going on. Initially, FP1 thought, you know what, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be a clear, sunny day in Silverstone throughout the entire weekend. I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be the case now. Saturday, the chance of rain has definitely reduced, so maybe the drama's gone. Maybe it's the weather people behind the British weather, just F1 fans, and they're trying to hype everything up a little bit. Well, Sunday, the rain definitely is a lot more likely to come around. And with that being 50% chance around about 8 to 9 a.m, it would make the track pretty greasy, pretty slippery, Only 25 for 12 p.m. and then it's 3 o'clock 15%, 4 o'clock 20%. So it definitely reduces, but it would still mean that the circuit could be very slippy, sorry, and cooler, and that cooler track conditions would be brilliant for the Mercedes crew. Keeping everything cool would be ideal for the team that won the Grand Prix and took pole position with two different drivers this time last year. Now their pace doesn't seem to be as good, but they have still won the Canadian Grand Prix so far this season, so they are still very quick. Quicker than the McLarens and the Ferraris, I'm not entirely sure. And I think George Russell really is aiming 10 points and a P5 today. They actually got beaten by their teammate by a tenth and a bit yesterday in FP3. But then also Lance Stroll, P7, they were ahead. Nothing against Lance Stroll, but I don't think that Aston Martin should be faster than the Mercedes. So I think there's a bit more performance for George Russell to extract in that car. And we begin for the session. We're good to go. Everybody's now making their way to the track. Lewis Hamilton was in the car, but we've got the Alpine already out right now. Is that Franco Colapinto? It's Colapinto and Gasly, actually. But what I wanted to say was that Charles Leclerc said that there's something wrong with the front left of the car yesterday, and they think that they can extract a lot more performance. So they are looking for a lot more this weekend already, and that could definitely put them on a good trajectory. They won, of course, in 2022 with Carlos Sainz. They've had some pretty good times around here. They won in 2018 with Sebastian Vettel, but I don't think they've won any more than that in the recent years, at least. Fernando Alonso, I believe, winning in 2011 as well. They're going to try and do it again with either Charles Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton, but ideally for Lewis Hamilton, he at least gets a podium to continue that record. 11 podiums in a row, 9 race victories in their career. Of course, taking their first victory in 2008 in the rain. We could still see some rain in the race. It would be very difficult, really, for things to change that quickly. Alright, we're just going to take a quick moment as we sync things up on the stream. And then we'll be good to go. Just 30 seconds, and then we'll be having everything back together. I do apologise. You know what? We'll actually just share the screen back already as everything is syncing up. And now we are good to go. So far, only having Colapinto and Gasly out on track, interestingly. But now it is Stroll and Alonso who make their way out on track as well, onto the hard tyre, softs, the two Alpine cars. I am, well, I was going to say I'm a little bit confused at why we're not seeing other cars out on track. Well, I'll tell you why. It's because the circuit is a little bit dirty. They wanted to clean it. So that's why there was a delay to the start of the session. And now there are a few cars out on track. All the other teams want a few other cars to pick up all the dirt so they don't have to drive their car over all the dirt. Very selfish, but if you want to maximise your performance, you've got to do it. Whereas the Alpine team, who have the back foot, they want to get some running in that car. They want to try and get some data and, of course, get Franco Colapinto comfortable with the package that they've got, as they haven't seemed to have that confidence on too many occasions. We did see them have brilliant confidence in Canada, but other than that, nothing much more. Alrighty. That's Hamilton leaving the pit lane as well, as they were in their suit pretty early on. Basically when the session was meant to start, but they sat in the car for a bit. And Stroll and Alonso straight back in to the pit lane on that hard tyre. Didn't set a fully timed lap, just did an out lap and went really quite slowly. Colapinto and Gasly still out on track at the moment. Cleaning up the surface. Hamilton wants to try and get some running in for a circuit that they're very confident at. And maybe that's a call to some other teams to say, you know what, you should probably come out on track. We've currently got the best driver in the world around Silverstone here. Lewis Hamilton, 9 victories in Formula 1. Maybe follow what they're doing, because they know a bit about this place. And that's not me just trying to have confidence for Lewis Hamilton, it's literal facts. There's nothing you can do about that when you can't run away from the facts. "50 minutes on the clock. First 10 minutes done. And Lewis Hamilton going purple in the first sector on the soft tyre. Hulkenberg leaves the pit lane as well. And we're likely to see a few more make their way to the end as well of the garage, or end of the pit lane, out of their garages. Very tidy for Lewis Hamilton right now. Currently just over 3/10 up on Colapinto's lap time. They've got the final sector to go. You go through Stowe Corner, you gain some time there. Give a little bit of the straight and the hanger straight. And you also have the club chicane in the final corner to go through onto the Hamilton straight and gain even more lap time. And you can see how quick they went, 7.5 tenths ahead of Colapinto. And that is the Alpine garage doing some pit stop practice. I think they might be bringing the car back into the pit lane anyway. Yep, that is the two Alpines now staying in after that pit stop practice. They just go straight back in to the pit lane regardless. Two cars only out on track. Lewis Hamilton, of course, setting that fastest lap time. Hulkenberg has set a lap time on the soft tyre, but quite far away. 6/10 away from Gasly's time. Gasly about 2/10 away from his teammate almost. So Hulkenberg needs to do a little bit more. That Sauber has been quick in recent times. Of course, double points in Austria. Hulkenberg going from P20 to I think it's either P10 or P9. I'm going to double check that result real quick. But and then Bortoleto getting their first points in Formula 1 as well. Absolutely awesome from the team in Austria. The race result. Yep, that did end up being Bortoleto P8 and P9 for Hulkenberg, making all those positions, and fighting with Fernando Alonso at the end was Bortoleto to try and get some extra points. But they've had a massive leap in performance, has Sauber, and just race operation, I think, and it's given them a brilliant boost. Currently still P9 in the championship, but only 2 points away from Aston Martin, 3 points away from Haas, and 10 points away from Racing Bulls. So a big step up has really helped them out a lot, and it's yeah, a very good season so far for Sauber, considering their more recent seasons and their performance, as they have struggled a little bit. Bortoleto scoring those points does put them ahead of Colapinto and Doohan in the championship, solidifying them at least. I think they were already had before. 2 points behind Behrman, who's on 6 points, who hasn't scored that many points in recent times, although has still been considered to be putting in some brilliant performances regardless, which is an interesting one for Oliver Behrman, but we're all behind him. 10 points for Yuki Tsunoda. They're looking to try and get some more for the team that have their home or main base here in Silverstone, in Northamptonshire, Milton Keynes. And then other points have been scored by many drivers, and it's all looking very spicy in the midfield, but also very spicy with George Russell and Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. That could be very interesting. And then you've got the battle for the championship lead of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. It's Lando Norris who's currently waiting in the pit box before they leave the garage to go out with that lovely chrome livery car, as they've run a few times now in a row for the British Grand Prix events. They said there's no place like chrome. That's their kind of pun. There is Lando Norris leaving the garage and on their way. .816 was the fastest time from Lando Norris yesterday, and the pole time for the 2024 Grand Prix was a 25.819. So we are just past the fastest lap of 2024, but we are going to be expecting to go quicker here today in FP3, although the track conditions are cooler. The air conditions have gone from about 24.5 yesterday in FP2 to 19.7, and the track conditions the track conditions, the track temperature, that was about 40 degrees, and that's now gone down to 25.2. It's a huge here for Mercedes. Absolutely brilliant stuff for the Brackley-based team. But will it stay that way for qualifying? Will it stay that way for the race? For the race, very possible. For qualifying, I feel like it is going to change. I don't know why, I just have a feeling. I just have a feeling. We've seen a few more cars now leave the pit lane, and almost everybody else is out on track. It's Lewis Hamilton who's on top of the times as they went faster again. It's Lance Stroll to P2, a second behind the Brit on the medium tyre though. Then Colapinto, Gasly, Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, and now other cars are coming through, with Leclerc going fastest in the first sector. Soft tyres for Leclerc, but also for Norris and Piastri, who are expected to go quickly. In the pit lane it is Alonso, who did one brief lap earlier on, and the two Alpines, and then it's Lawson, Ocon and Behrman who are still in the pit lane at the moment. Other than that, everybody else out on track, looking to try and set their first laps of the day here on a Saturday. Looking to get themselves warmed up, warmed in, ready to go. 5 votes for who will be fastest in FP3, and we see 33% for Ferrari and 67% for McLaren. 6 votes now, actually, I should say. So an interesting split. Ferrari still has some confidence. I think that's probably realistic, actually, you know. I think McLaren do have a 67% chance of going fastest in the practice session, and I think that Ferrari have a 33% chance. I think maybe Mercedes have an opportunity as well. Verstappen to P2, as Leclerc has gone fastest though, but it's all very marginal, with the top 3, Lando Norris and Piastri, not having such a good time at catching up to the top 3 right now. But it is early stages, and it is their first lap, of course. So yeah, interesting stuff right here. And that's Sonoda to P5. Still 8 tenths away from their teammate Sainz up to P8. Lots of improvements coming here. Lots of first laps coming from many drivers. Antonelli P5 to take Tsunoda down a position. Piastri getting split away from their teammate. And the gap is half a second between Piastri and Norris effectively. And that's Russell to P4. They're gaining a lot of time on his teammate as well. Getting ahead of Lando Norris by a fair few tenths. Still a tenth away, over a tenth away from the top 3 times that are looking incredibly quick right now. "38 minutes on the clock here in Silverstone. But I just can't wait for qualifying. That's where we really get to see the pace of those cars. So we really get to see who will be on top. It is McLaren, who have now got a 57% chance of going fastest according to the 7th vote. 43% chance for Ferrari, as an extra vote for the red team has come in. Splitting things up a little bit. I should say mixing things up a little bit. And then I will go for a rundown. So far, if you've missed it and haven't been around at the beginning of the session, we saw a few minute delay to begin the FP3 session, as that was because there was some dirt on the track, the marbles, the tear-offs, everything that you can think of that a race car will spill out onto a circuit. And it meant that there was a delay, and then the Alpines came out on track and Lewis Hamilton came out on track just to run and clear the track up a little bit further. And now everybody has decided to come out on track. A few cars have gone into the pit lane again, but so far it looks like everybody is looking to set at least one lap. Fernando Alonso on the medium tyre, hard tyre for Liam Lawson, Agile hard as well. 17th for them at the moment, 1.7 seconds away from the fastest time set by Charles Leclerc, who's just left the pit lane once again, is out on track once more. It's Max Verstappen, who is also doing the same thing on exactly the same run plan as Charles Leclerc right now, according to what we have available on our screen. 3-lap-old scrub tyres for the top 2. A slow first sector for Charles Leclerc and for Max Verstappen. Hadjar to Hadjar to P11. They improved massively with that time, but then Sainz just knocked them down to P11 as they were P10 for a moment. Medium tyre, full colour Sainz, not PBing in the middle, but final and first. They do so. Norris going quicker, 29.3 here in the first sector. Piastri also going for an improvement lap. Bortoletto to P6. And improving nicely, but looking at the sector times from Lando Norris, they are going much quicker. And I think they're going to try and bring that gap down, if not match Leclerc, Verstappen and Hamilton, beat them and get to the top of the times. Lando Norris What's it going to be for the Brits? They go around the final corner, across the line, and they're going to go to P5. They didn't go quite so quickly in the final sector as we expected, but they did catch up massively and brought the gap down. They do go nice and closely to the back of Russell, but 2 tenths away from Leclerc, Verstappen and Hamilton, effectively. And, 2 tenths away from Charles Leclerc. Piastri, a very similar lap time, nice and close to his teammate, but still not quite so comforting with 34 minutes on the clock to go for the McLaren team. We ran out some time, we ran out of some time at the beginning of the session because a few teams were waiting for the Alpines to clear up the track a little bit as they allowed them to go out for the first 10 minutes of the session. So we've effectively reached kind of like 43 minutes of a session. Obviously, we're not going to get that time back. It doesn't pause in practice. You don't get a pause timer like you do in the race or in the qualifying session. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Just some interesting comments for the Racing Bull team. They see Hadjar, who's going all out for qualifying and then looking to have some high downforce in the race. I think they had apparently the least degradation out of anyone. High traffic in the final part of the circuit right there, but cleared eventually. And in the meantime, we've seen an 8th vote for the FP3 who will go fastest call. And it's McLaren now 50%, with Ferrari 50% as well. Interesting stuff. Gets more and more closer to the Ferrari hype that we're looking for. Well, it is Charles Leclerc who's currently leading the way. We have seen Russell improve, and they've jumped ahead of Hamilton, Antonelli as well, doing the same thing. Hamilton now fastest in the first sector. 27.871 versus Russell's 0.997. So they are going much quicker here. Their teammate in the pit lane at the moment, Hamilton, would be uncontested by their teammates. And with the 7-lap-old scrub soft tyres, they are definitely going for it quite quickly, pushing quite hard. Those tyres aren't going to be the fastest. So by going purple at this stage, they are definitely giving it good old crack. Coming at a chapel across the sector line, 2.5 tenths down right now, so they would find themselves in maybe P2 if they can keep the pace up, but that middle sector wasn't quite so strong as they lost out. They've got that final sector to go, which has a lot of corners for such a small distance to travel, but there it is, Hamilton across the line, and they will not improve position-wise in the end. They're very close to the back of Russell, and they split Antonelli and Russell, but they don't actually they do make progress, of course, on Antonelli, but they don't actually get anywhere near. So their teammate, after going purple in the first sector, 4 tenths away from Charles Leclerc, not really doing their best in that final sector. I do wonder if that maybe is down to tyres a little bit. That could be the case. So just currently commenting on what happened yesterday and what's happening now. They're expecting the medium tyre to be just as quick as the soft effectively and could be used in qualifying, as we've seen many times by the Aston Martin team. Most notably initially at Imola when the cars were running the C6 and C5 and C4 tyre, and that C6 tyre was very, very complicated to deal with. Well, they're looking for that medium tyre to still be quick despite the cooler conditions. Usually a softer compound tyre performs better in colder conditions. However, that doesn't seem to be the case so much. Qualifying could be a mix of yellow wall and red wall tyres. Antonelli goes over the curbs a little bit hard, scraping along the floor. And a ninth vote comes into the chat to make it a 56-44 split towards Ferrari to go fastest here in FP3. Oh, Max Verstappen frustrated by getting slightly impeded. Would have had a little bit of a tow from whoever that was. That was from an Alpine. Verstappen goes faster than before. 2 tenths behind. Fastest in the first sector by a small margin ahead of Lewis Hamilton earlier on. So once again, for I don't know how many weekends now, we see Red Bull struggle on the Friday massively, and then we see once again on the Saturday they seem to bring it together, and right now that's what we're seeing from Max Verstappen. Yuki Tsunoda P10, 8 tenths away from the top time, so 6 tenths away from their teammate. And they've got a bit of work to do. That's Charles reporting rain at turn 9, Cops Corner. Another place that you want to be getting wet conditions. If there's only one place to get wet conditions on this circuit, it's probably the last place you would choose for it to happen. I don't really know where the first place you would choose for it to happen, to be honest. Leclerc getting a bit of slipperiness on the exit of turn 7, as they had a big old tank slapper and ended up going straight off of that lap in the end. Completely backed off of it. "20 minutes on the clock. Anton Lego fastest in the first sector. Fresh, soft tyres. Other cars have been on some fairly fresh, soft tyres as well. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, although sat in the pit lane at the moment. Lots of cars sat in the pit lane at this stage. And right now, Colapinto's lap from earlier on seems to be holding off, or their momentum at least seems to be holding off from Pierre Gasly as they continue ahead of the Frenchman, who's more experienced not only in Formula 1 but in the Alpine team. Hulkenberg currently at the back of the pack. Bortoleto, their teammate, P14, 2.2 seconds away. They missed out on FP1 due to Paul Aaron taking that place, so they've got an hour less running. Then with 10 minutes less on allowing the Alpines to clear up the track, they ended up losing even more. And that's the same for Sonoda as well, who missed out for Arvid Lindblad, who took their place in FP1. That's Gasly and Lawson having a little bit of a moment on track, as their body language was interesting. Here, Gasly sat on the apex of turn 8, and then that was Liam Lawson overtaking them. Then moving to the right-hand side, Gasly went to overtake on the entry to Copse Corner, but didn't quite get there, and Liam Lawson took the racing line once again, so to back off did Pierre Gasly. Not exactly happy with each other, it seems. Lawson, Gasly, drivers driving erratically has been noted. Well, actually, it's Lawson who's only been noted as driving erratically, which I think is fair enough. Gasly was more of an impeding moment. And Lando Norris on top. We've got just over a quarter of an hour left of the session. We've currently got Lando Norris, who's done a 25.606, 2 tenths faster than yesterday's fastest time set by Norris himself. And it's then Charles Leclerc, 3.5 tenths away. It's Piastri who's just taken that top spot by with a 25.566, half a tenth ahead of their teammate Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc P3, as we were saying. Russell Verstappen in P5. They're close together with one another. Then it's Hamilton, followed by Antonelli, Behrman, Albon, Tsunoda, Sainz, Alonso, Esteban Ocon, Gabriel Bortoleto, Hadjar, Colapinto, Stroll, Lawson, Gasly, and Nico Hülkenberg at the back of the pack. And he proceeds to lose a bit more of a gap to the other cars around them, although they are now on the fresh soft tyres. So we'll get to see what Hülkenberg can really do on the tyre that they now have in the Sauber car. Carlos Sainz pushing into Copse Corner, having a big moment as they go wide on the kind of entry of Copse Corner, not wanting to ride over the curb too hard and spin the car like we saw from, that was Colapinto, and I can't remember who else it was. Unless it was Gasly. It was at least an Alpine. Oh yeah, it was Gasly, and then it was Bortoleto. But now Piastri and Norris, the McLaren team, have definitely found some confidence here later into FP3. And it definitely makes things a little bit more kind of expected, pace-wise and order-wise. Will it be the way that we finish the session though? I don't know. Fresh tyres for the McLaren drivers put them in that position. It's Max Verstappen who's going faster than anyone in the first sector on some fresh soft tyres. 27.670 for Max Verstappen. The middle sector seems to be where it was at least make or break for Lewis Hamilton relative to his teammate Charles Leclerc. A 34.44, better than their best, but not the fastest middle sector. Is it going to be fast enough to be able to be super competitive? Charles Leclerc also making their way out of the pit lane to go quickly here. So the McLarens, they found that confidence for now, but are they going to hold on to it? Well, Max Verstappen's just split the two McLarens and shows the competition is still there, and maybe the McLaren still isn't the fastest car this weekend. Lando Norris looking for their best chance to win their home Grand Prix. It's maybe not quite so straightforward as it seemed. Hülkenberg to P8, then down to P9 as Tsunoda goes to P5. And they're currently 5 tenths away from their teammates' best lap time. a big enough margin, but smaller than it has been in previous times. Hulkenberg a 26.499 and well ahead of their teammates, about just over 7/10 of a second. Charles Leclerc, first sector, what's it going to be for the Monaco driver on the fresh soft tyres? We're still yet to see that first sector, so I have a feeling that we're maybe not going to get a push lap here from Charles Leclerc. I beg your pardon, it's still an out lap there from the Monaco driver. And there's an extra vote for the who will go fastest in FP3. It's now 50-50 split with McLaren and Ferrari. Yuki Tsunoda wide, turn 6, turn 7, missing the apex a little bit. So to do what they did and have those big mistakes, they've got a lot of time to gain. They've got about 2/10 to gain here and catch up nicely to their teammates. So maybe the confidence is there for Tsunoda. They just need to tidy up the lap a bit more. I don't know. Leclerc 27.680. Fast. Not faster than Max Verstappen, but the middle sector Leclerc was pretty good at earlier on in the session at least. So we'll see what they can do here as they go through. I believe they're travelling through Copse Corner right now. Or sorry, Magnussen and Beckett's I should say. Through Chapel, the sector line coming up. There it is, 34.3. The middle sector is mighty. The final sector is upon them. Lewis Hamilton also on their way out to try and give it a go on the soft tyre. They are going for a bit of a different run plan, a second lap for them on this tyre. Charles Leclerc across the line. What's it going to be? And it's P1. It's P1 by almost 3/4 of a tenth of a second ahead of Piastri. And this is where I do get excited. 10 minutes on the clock for FP3 and Charles Leclerc is currently ahead. And both McLarens aren't really that comfortable. Usually we see this kind of 10-minute period, 15-minute period, soft tyres, plonked on, cars go quickly, and in the last 10 minutes not much happens. Right now, we're at that point, and I don't think McLaren are going to go quicker again. I think they're probably going to stay where they are, and that gives a very exciting vibe for the qualifying session that we'll be with you for a little bit later on, a few hours' time. Leclerc leads the way now by 25.498, the only driver to be in the 0.4 second margin. Then it is Oscar Piastri closely behind, followed very closely as well is Max Verstappen and then Lando Norris. Yuki Tsunoda's P5, 6/10 away from Lando Norris. Behrman, Albon, Russell, Hadjar, Lawson, and then Lewis Hamilton, who's currently purple in the first sector. A 0.534 in the first sector. Absolutely rapid from Hamilton, who seems to be the stronger of the two Ferrari drivers in the first sector. But the middle sector, can anyone beat Charles Leclerc? It just seems to be where they're coming alive with that car. They reported rain earlier on at Copse Corner in the middle sector, but they still managed to deal with it very, very nicely and go fastest. Maybe that rain didn't last for too long, I'm not entirely sure. Hamilton, across the sector line, a 34.4. Can't quite remember what time we saw from Charles Leclerc in that middle sector, but it definitely looks like the cars are very, very evenly split. It's a complicated one here. Across the line for Lewis Hamilton, what's it going to be? And they go, I'm hoping, over the sector line very shortly. I don't have a full view of what's going on on track for them. A 34.4 in the middle sector. And then it will be a red flag. What's happened now? A red flag for somebody. Is somebody stationary? Is that Lewis Hamilton? Lewis Hamilton into the pit lane. And I'm trying to get a view of what's just happened. Okay, bodywork has come off of one of the cars. Not entirely sure who that is. I think it's the Aston Martin of one of the cars who lost that part of the win. Or bodywork, at least. That's what we know for now. It's a shame because we didn't get to see what Lewis Hamilton was doing. 7 minutes on the clock. The time is running out and the chances of us having another look at going faster is very slim. We are going to have a look at the sectors if we can. And I want to have a look at the leaderboard to see who is doing the best in each sector. So, looking at Charles Leclerc, relative to their teammates at least, looking at sectors, we've got that sector 1 time, the best, a 27.6 from Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton, a 27.534, so massively ahead in the first sector, over a tenth ahead. The middle sector, a 34.409 from Lewis Hamilton, whereas a 34.337 for Charles Leclerc. The gap is still there for Charles Leclerc in the middle sector. They're still quicker, but not by as much as Hamilton is in the first sector. The final sector, a 23.5 earlier on from Lewis Hamilton, a 23.541, but then Leclerc on their best lap, a 23.481. So that is definitely pro Hamilton, it looks, according to that. Maybe that was bodywork from the Haas, actually, I should say. Yeah, okay, so it's the Haas car that lost that bodywork in the end. So they have got a few and right now, 4 minutes on the clock, we're probably going to see all the cars dive out of the pit lane to get ready for their practice starts. Looking like the soft tyres will be the choice for many drivers. But we're not going to see any fast laps, unfortunately, I don't think. We will have Behrman on some quick tyres, although they may not come back out because of that damage that they just lost, the bodywork that they lost. And that's Nico Hülkenberg, who's currently got their car halfway out of the garage, but not able to get to the fast lane. And looking at the time that we've got left on the clock and the time that the session is going to start, and with all the cars currently stacked up in the pit lane, I don't think Hülkenberg's going to have a chance to go again. They would have a chance at looking at a practice start, but they're definitely not going to be able to go for anything lap-wise. They do barge their way in just ahead of the McLaren car. But let's see what we can find in the final minutes. Currently, we see Bortoleto go out on some slightly older scrub soft tyres. Alonso, fresh soft tyres. Fresh soft tyres for Gasly as well. Russell, Hadjar, fairly fresh tyres at least. Albon, fairly fresh, but not going to be setting the world alight. Charles Leclerc currently topping the times, and a few cars waiting to leave the pit lane with a few minutes to go. Just to update you on what just happened, we had a red flag due to some bodywork falling off of Oliver Behrman's car. Everybody was sent into the pit lane so they could recover that damage, and now they've been released once more. Most cars just looking to try and give it a shot for the practice starts in a few moments time, but it seems like maybe a few want to try and give it a fast run. So let's see, are we going to get the most exciting end to a practice session that you will expect to ever get, or is it just going to be standard running as expected up to the flag and a practice start? Ooh. George Russell into turn 3, going very deep, and then also blocking a few other cars as well in the process. Not really by an intentional state. Just completely locking up into turn 3, going off the circuit. And they didn't impede anybody else, but the Ferrari and the Red Bull, I think of Yuki Tsunoda, and I'm not entirely sure who the Ferrari was, did have a difficult time. That's a red flag. Ooh. Bortoleto into the wall. It seems they've lost a front left wheel, and that's going to be the day done. Practice will finish in dramatic style. Gabriel Bortoleto ends the session with a minute to go, and not in a way that they would have wanted to do that. That's incredibly frustrating, especially with only a few hours until qualifying. And the Sauber team have got a lot of work to do. P15 and P16 from scoring double points in Austria, and now a car that is in bits before the qualifying session here in Silverstone. They've got a lot of work to do. That's really frustrating. Yet to see what the crash looks like. It's on the Exeter Chapel. Interestingly, a corner that I know well. At least I know the wall well in the F1 games. Which is very strange because usually people don't crash at that corner. Actually, they lost it at Beckett's, completely cut across. Completely cut across the Chapel corner as they spun it, and as they went over the grass, over the curbs, the suspension broke, which is interesting. And that's the second time that we've seen the suspension break on the Sauber car, as they haven't actually made any contact with a wall. It's just kind of snapped. So that Sauber, very fragile on the suspension, which is quite frustrating for Bortoleto. They didn't hit the wall, they avoided the wall, but they still end up losing out. The bump on the grass and the suspension just completely snaps, and then it's just a passenger at that point. Put a little bit of a brake on if you can to avoid hitting the wall further. They did so. with the help of the gravel trap. And that's them done. That is practice done. And we will see you in a few hours' time for qualifying. But first, we'll go through the order. It's Charles Leclerc who tops the times by 3/4 of a tenth of a second. And it's Piastri in P2. Verstappen, Norris, Tsunoda, Behrman, Albon, Russell, Hadjar and Lawson finishing the top 10. Hamilton, who was going quickly but hasn't been able to set that final lap, P11. Carlos Sainz, Esteban Ocon, Antonelli, Hulkenberg, Bortoletto, Alonso, Colapinto, Stroll, Gasly. No. Oliver Behrman also had an off. Oliver Behrman also had an off. If they've lost their full front nose cone. And that's on pit lane entry. Oh, wow. Cold brakes, of course, just doing an outlap before the red flag was called and then immediately going back into the pit lane, locking up the rears and hitting the wall on the right hand side as they entered the pit lane. Absolutely brutal from Oliver Behrman. So their day for damage has gone from bad to slightly worse, but not as bad as Bortoletto. They do, of course, though, lose a front wing, and that's not going to be repairable. So they've gone through that resource, and maybe a little bit of a lower spec wing will be brought in for their car, which is going to compromise their weekend a little bit. A very, very dramatic end to FP3 here today. But we are set up for a very, very interesting qualifying session, which I can't wait to see. We were saying Aston Martin not so quick as we expected. Same for Sauber. Antonelli seems to have a few struggles here and there. But other than that, everybody is kind of where I would expect them to be, except for the McLarens who were not P1 and P2. It's Ferrari who seem to still have some sort of an advantage. And Verstappen has brought the pace together here on Saturday. How will they fare in a few hours' time for when the cars are dialed up to the max? We'll see you in a few minutes to find out. A few hours to find out. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.